Their house seemed like a fortress, set up with what Younger called fire-wise recommendations. According to Younger, its eaves and soffits were sealed and stuccoed, its vents screened, leaving no exposed wooden beams, no openings where sparks might blow into the attic, no architectural details where embers might lodge and ignite. The house had an interior sprinkler system connected to a 10,000-gallon water tank. Sandra and her husband, Bob, thought they were prepared for a fire. They even had a specialist remove truckloads of chaparral from their 5-acre property. They could never have foreseen the Cedar fire just east of Ramona that took their beautiful house away from them and over 2,000 homes in San Diego County in 2003. Simultaneously, the Paradise Fire, which originated in the Rincon Reservation just 6 miles from Park Circle in Valley Center, California, ravaged 223 structures. All in all, Cedar Fire caused 15 fatalities and the Paradise Fire caused 2 fatalities. We have Sandra Younger with us today to tell us her story about the largest fire in California and explain how she came to forgive the man who started the fire. She meticulously wrote the riveting book called The Fire Outside My Window, which painstakingly details how she escaped and how the fire started. Integrated into the story are historical outlines of the fires that preceded the Cedar Fire and what firefighters and California officials have learned throughout the years. This book is a must-have for anyone who lives in a high fire zone like the residents at Park Circle Valley Center. Sandra, this book is beautifully written. It has the makings of a piece of historical fiction with a well-introduced cast of characters. It has significant historical descriptions which impress upon the reader, and it reveals your emotions as you lost your house, a fire-safe house with defensible space. Unfortunately, this is not historical fiction. It is a true story.
True. It actually happened, all of it. And I might add as a note to your introduction, thank you, that the Cedar Fire is no longer the biggest fire in California's recorded history. It was at that time, and it was for 14 years. And the change in the fire regimes that we've been seeing since then, as a result largely of climate change, have far eclipsed the size of the Cedar Fire at that time.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, thanks for offering your time to be interviewed today.
Of course.
And I just have 4 questions. So we'll start out with just you telling us your story. Just tell us what you'd like us to know.
Okay. Where to start? We had decided as new empty nesters, that we were going to move out of the suburbs of San Diego. And we found this beautiful house perched on the side of a mountain in Wildcat Canyon, which is in East San Diego County, above Lakeside, about 2 miles south of Verona, if people know where that is. And we loved it. We were just besotted with the nature all around us, with hawks and coyotes. And one day on my way to work, I even saw a bobcat running down the road. It was amazing. I thought, wow, a real wildcat in Wildcat Canyon. And as you've already outlined, we did ask what we should do to protect ourselves against fire. And we thought we had done everything possible. But of course, some fires are unstoppable. And only 7 months after we moved in to our beautiful new home, which we gave it a name. We thought it was so special. We called it Terra Nova, which means our new land. So only 7 months later, we woke up in the middle of the night to the sight of fire outside our window, which is where the title of my book comes from. And we had to run for our lives. And as we were lost in the smoke, a bobcat, don't know if it was the same one, maybe not, but a bobcat jumped right in front of the headlights of the car and showed us where the road was because it was hidden from us by the smoke. And that is how we negotiated our way out of the fire and escaped when, tragically, 12 of our fellow Wildcat Canyon residents were among the Cedar Fire's 15 fatalities.
Wow. Anything else you'd like to add to your story?
I knew almost immediately after we escaped the fire that I had to write a book about it, because I was a journalist. At that time, I was the editor of San Diego State University magazine. And I had been a journalist for my career. My degrees were in journalism. So I was the storyteller who came out of one of the worst parts of, to that point, one of the worst fires anyone had ever seen in California. And it was clearly my job to tell that story. So I set out to do that. It took me, as you may know, 10 years to get the book out. Of course, I had a little bit to do in the meantime, like rebuilding a house. But I did over 100 interviews. I wanted to be thorough. I wanted to be fair. I wanted to tell the story of both the firefighters on their side battling this catastrophe, and those of us in the public who were trying so desperately to escape it. And I wanted us to remember the people we lost in that fire, not let them be forgotten. So I took that on as my project, and the book did come out on the 10-year anniversary of the fire. And I'm thrilled to say that I am releasing in just a couple of weeks a 20th anniversary edition of the fire outside my window that will begin with a new introduction that brings people up to date with what we have learned about fire since, and repositions the Cedar fire not just as a long ago fire that's irrelevant to what's going on now, but as a historic bellwether of the climate-driven extreme fires we're seeing now, and in fact are happening all over the world. So that's what I've been doing since the book has been released. It gave me a platform to speak, to help other people be more prepared than we were, to help both disaster survivors and emergency responders build their resilience in the face of these extreme events we're facing.
Wow. Well, I'll be happy to read the introduction. We need it here in Valley Center because we're in a high fire zone, which was
You are, yes.
Paradise Fire.
As are we. And yes, the Paradise Fire is equally important to the Cedar Fire because it did ravage your community there in Valley Center, and also took the lives of 2 of your residents who are also mentioned in the book. I do talk about that fire in the book a lot.
And I enjoy having the map there. That was very helpful, having the map.
Yes. People have said we wouldn't have known what was going on without that map. So we'll bring the map back in the 20th anniversary edition.
Okay, great. That's great. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Yes, we are always working on disaster preparedness. So anything you can tell us at the end in terms of what we need to do to be more prepared, that would be awesome. So can you explain to us how you brought yourself to forgive the stranded hunter who started the fire?
Oh, the lost hunter. You know, forgiveness is a funny thing. Not really sure where it comes from, whether it comes from us or whether it comes from forces beyond us, forces maybe coming through us. There were many people who found it difficult to forgive the man who started the fire. I talked with him. I went to his court proceedings. And what was clear to me was that he did not mean to do that. He certainly did not foresee the effects of his actions when he lit a signal fire way out near Julian in the middle of the worst possible fire risk conditions. I actually considered him another victim of the fire. And I was able to forgive him. Other people did have more trouble with that. And I don't know if it helped him. I did tell him that at one of his court appearances when I saw him just after he had pleaded guilty. And I told him my name, and I told him that the fire had taken my house, and that I forgave him. And I don't know if that helped him, but I know it helped me. Because when we harbor resentment and blame, we're only poisoning ourselves. it's only when we can forgive, and sometimes that happens gradually, sometimes it takes forever, sometimes it happens in layers, but until we can forgive the people we feel were responsible for our tragedies, and sometimes us forgive ourselves, until then we can't start to heal and grow and actually transform that disaster into opportunities and new possibilities. So that's the way I look at it.
Well said. And you came to that conclusion quite early. Other people were still angry and protested, and you even talked about a committee that actually, I'm not sure if they put in a proposal or what they wanted to do, but they blamed the firefighters and the officials for it.
There were many people who also blamed the firefighters, as particularly the leadership of the firefighters. And I ran down all of their concerns and accusations as best I could as an investigative journalist. And there were some discrepancies about when the fire was reported and when the firefighters responded. And all of the information I could find that was documented, and the testimony of several different people who did see the fire at its earliest stages indicated that there was no delay in responding to the fire. And I think perhaps there was a misunderstanding about the time change, because that same night was when we fell back from daylight savings time, and the concerns were an hour off. There was an hour discrepancy there in some people's minds. And I really think that was the heart of the accusation, that the firefighters did not respond accurately. There was also a concern, or, in time, not accurately, but in a timely way. They responded as soon as they got the call. There was also a concern that a helicopter was turned back that had a Bambi bucket, which could have dropped water on the fire. That did happen. My feeling there is that the problem really was that the fire was in such an inaccessible location that there was no way to get firefighters in there and guarantee them a safe escape route. It was not going to be possible to put boots on the ground, as we say. And the evidence of firefighting history is that air attack alone, especially one helicopter, would not have been enough to extinguish the fire. It dumps water on the fire or retardant, and it does just that. It retards the fire for a while, but unless you can, and this from just the tiny fires we have in our own fireplace, unless you put it all the way out, there's a little ember in there. And if you blow on it, and if a spark flies out and lands on something else that's really flammable, it's going to start again. So my feeling is that it's unfortunate that, again, the fire happened at the time of day when it was not considered safe for air attack to fly because of the visibility issue. We've made progress on that now. We now have some air that can fly after dark, but at that time that was not the case. So yeah, there were people, and there are always people who are devastated and traumatized and are kind of desperate for somewhere to pin the blame. And I truly understand that. I was that way too. Why didn't something happen? How could this incredible thing have rolled over us? And that's one reason I wanted to write the book, was just to investigate all that. What just happened to me? And I know a lot of people felt that way as well, but mistakes were made. People were not ready. Firefighters were not ready, of course. But I don't think there was any negligence or certainly no malice on the part of our emergency responders. They are the best in the world. And they really killed themselves. Literally one of their number died in the fire, but they were working nonstop for 48, 96 hours at a time. So I don't blame the firefighters. at all.
Mm-hmm.
I salute them for their incredible heroism and competence.
Mm-hmm. So clearly your background in journalism helped you to do the investigation, but do you think it was still very emotional for you while you were doing that investigation?
Oh, definitely. I think it was incredibly cathartic for me. And again, my nature is to want to know why to everything. I think that's why I went into journalism. It gave me a license to ask people a lot of nosy questions. So for sure, it was emotional. And I can tell you that just about everybody, especially our firefighters, got emotional while recounting their fire story. They would stop sometimes and say, I just wish we could have gotten everyone out. When you think about the fact that this thing you've trained to do all your life, this thing that you are just passionate about doing, which is protecting lives and property, you could not do to your maximum ability or desire, because this was an unstoppable fire. Sometimes I think our firefighters work against themselves because they're so good at what they do. 97% of the fires that start in our wildlands, we never hear about because they're put out before they can get out of control. And it's just that 2 or 3% that escape that make the headlines. If we had hurricane fighters or tsunami fighters, tornado fighters, can you imagine? There's no such thing, because those are forces of nature that cannot be stopped. We just have to get out of the way as best we can. But firefighting has been so successful that we now expect it to always be successful. And there are certainly unstoppable fires, just as there are unstoppable forces of nature in every other sense.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's hard for people who lost their loved ones and valuables to really come to that understanding, right? They can't fathom that there's fires that just can't be put out, at least not immediately, right? So
I think we're learning that after 20 years of seeing these incredible fires. We just saw the deadliest fire in U.S. history since the 1800s happened in Maui. Who would have thought that? So I think we're getting the message with the insurance crisis, with these fires happening places we wouldn't have imagined. Siberia has unstoppable fires all across Canada all this summer in an area that's usually considered pretty damp and not as vulnerable to massive wildfires. We're seeing fires all over the globe, and it's partly because of poor forest management over the years, and mostly because our climate is hotter and drier and more susceptible to fire than ever before. So I think we're getting that message that there are unstoppable fires.
And some would argue, though, the difference between 20 years ago and today with the Maui fires, that we do have alert systems. And some would argue that what happened in Maui is that there wasn't an alert system that went off. At least there was, but they didn't use it, right? So I think that today, hopefully, we have the Watch Duty and other apps like San Diego Emergency Alert apps that can help let us know ahead of time, or reverse 911s. And I think that
point. Yeah, we do have a lot of apps. We have a lot of technology, both in aiding the public and aiding the firefighters, that we did not have 20 years ago.
So how did you have the motivation to rebuild your house?
It wasn't a question. It was our home. We wanted to go home. And we were among a lucky few people that had plenty of insurance to do that. So it didn't really take much motivation. It was instinctive.
Okay. And what would you tell our residents? No, there's over 600 homes here in Park Circle, and we are pretty new. We've been here at least a year and a half, for most of us. And what would you tell us? We're in a high fire zone.
I would say go to some of the many sites online. Cal Fire has one. There are a couple listed. There are links to a couple at my website, sandrayounger.com. They will give you detailed lists of everything you can do to make your property as fire resistant as possible. They will also give you lots of great information about packing a go bag. If people were at the SDG&E Wildfire Safety Fair in Valley Center a few weeks ago, I talked about that as well. But there are detailed lists online. And beyond that, I would offer my live formula to survive a wildfire. Would you like me to share that with you?
Absolutely.
So L is for listen to your gut. I was just reading this morning, there's this scientific proof now that intuition is not just some woo-woo thing. We can trust it. If you feel like you're in danger, you probably are and should act accordingly. Do not wait for somebody to show up at your door with an engraved invitation to evacuate. We never got an invitation to evacuate. We never had a signal or a warning, although people were trying desperately to warn us. And same thing in Maui. So you have to listen to your own gut, which will tell you, hey, I'm getting nervous here. That's when you need to leave. I, in the live formula, is to inform yourself, stay up to date with what's going on. Some of these apps that you just mentioned, also, you can get a scanner app for your phone to tell what's going on. Pay attention. We were not paying attention the day the Cedar fire started. It was all over the front page of the San Diego Union Tribune. There was a red flag warning. We paid no attention to that. We should have. We should have been on alert. So inform yourself. Stay aware of what's going on and ready to leave, because it can come to your door a lot faster than you think. That's one of the lessons of the Cedar fires, just to think a lot bigger, a lot faster. These fires can move. V is to value yourself rather than your stuff. Value your lives and the lives of your family and your neighbors and your pets. And don't waste valuable time packing your car up with stuff that you can replace. Get yourself out first. And then if you have time, you can take some other things, but you may not have as much time as you want, as you think. So value your life above all. And E is the most important one, and that is to evacuate early. Don't hang around and think you can be a garden hose hero and fight 100-foot tall wave of fire with your garden hose. That's not possible. There are incredible temperatures and poisonous gases that run ahead of these big fires that you are not going to be able to withstand. And Chief Joe Napier of Valley Center Fire District was really great at the Wildfire Safety Fair, explaining that to people. Here's what you're up against. You have no idea. So that's my live formula, is listen to your gut. If you think you're in danger, you probably are and should leave. I, keep yourself informed. V, value your life more than your stuff. And E, evacuate early. Don't hang around till things get scary. Don't try to wait and take a selfie with the flames behind you, please. Just get out. Keep gas in your car is another one, because even though you have enough to get out of your neighborhood, you may get stuck in a line of cars and not have enough to wait that out. You don't want to get stuck in a line of cars. That's why you evacuate early. So those are some things I tell people. We can do whatever is possible. We can do everything possible to feel like we're ready and to be to have a fire-hardened home. Nothing is a guarantee. So we need to be ready to let everything else go and save ourselves.
Such valuable advice. Thank you so much. We try to tell people that every day.
You're welcome.
And I would like to say, for those of you who are not familiar with the Cedar or Paradise Fire, CBS 8 News just has posted a video clip about 7 minutes on the actual Cedar fire from 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
And
already?
It's really interesting. Yes, they actually show the journalists going house to house and writing down the house numbers of which houses were burnt down, and they're in the Scripps Ranch area. So if you're interested, you can look at that and you can see how incredibly fast the flames were moving and how hurtful it was to many people, and it was difficult for journalists to even get in to report it. So well, we value your time, and thank you so much for sharing, and I look forward to the new book. Anything else you'd like to share?
I would also like to share that there is hope. All of this sounds pretty scary. You can be more prepared than I was. And there is, even in the worst of circumstances, another side to it. There is a silver lining. There is opportunity in crisis and fortune in misfortune. So I want people to know that and feel encouraged and not afraid.
Yeah, and you are the exemplar of hope, that's for sure.
Well,
so
thank
you
you.
very much.